Okay, so here we have two things, but it's also F-150 oriented. Some of you are probably saying, I know what that is. And some of you are saying, oh, what? So let's go ahead and you kind of wonder, right? I mean, he can't even open a box. How can he work on a truck? Some of you are like, I see. So I'm just looking in here to see that this all yeah, looks like they're both the same. So we're only going to open one. Or actually just do that. So we'll leave one setting to the side. Let's get this stuff out and talk about how we're not using that. So here we have oil catch can. There's two of them. They're red. Why? Because they were red. And I have to buy red stuff because I love red stuff. Unless the red stuff is coming out of me, then maybe I'm not so hot about it. But beyond that, I'm pretty cool about red stuff because I like red stuff. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so this is the deal. An oil, let's explain what an oil catch can is, and then we'll go through some details. And I don't know about that. I'm not really crazy about it, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. An oil catch can is usually useful on a turbocharged engine. Not so much on just your regular vehicles, though I guess it's probably it can be useful there. But it is especially useful on a direct injected engine. So a quick explanation of what direct injection is versus, and I don't know what the other one's called. I guess it's indirect, or maybe it's intake direct injected. I don't know. But so the way injection works is you have a valve that sprays a mist of fuel into the something and is ignited by the spark plug, or in the case of a diesel, by the pressure of the piston coming back up, because there's no spark plugs in a diesel. It's pressure. You compress diesel at a high enough pressure, it ignites and explodes, and that's how it works. That's why a diesel will run on forever, especially if it's getting oil from the engine to run on, because oil will do the same thing. Whole nother video on explaining all that, but that is true. So the injector on most of your vehicles is a lot of times in the air intake section, or like a throttle body, the fuel is sprayed and mixed and as the air intake, and then the intake valve on the cylinder head opens and sucks that mixture into the cylinder. Then the piston closes, piston ignites, and during the stroke, the exhaust opens and it pushes out the other way. And what that does is that fuel coats the back of the the intake valve and keeps it clean. Why does that matter? Okay, because you're just sucking air in. No, you're not. Since the EPA got involved with vehicles and you're reburning a lot of exhaust. So let me see how I can explain this to where it makes sense to me, and then hopefully it'll make sense to you. The exhaust or the higher pressure, because there's blow by in all cylinders. Okay. In other words, there's going to be some exhaust that gets past the rings into the engine, which creates pressure. And then you have a CVT valve that allows that pressure to release from the crankcase and come out. Years ago, it just went out into the atmosphere. And then the EPA is like, no, you can't do that. You got to do something with it. And so they put it back into the intake to go back through the cylinders and be reburnt. And it's a small amount of pressure, but it will build up over a period of time. And so you need to do something with it. But here's the thing. There's also going to be some oil residue that gets mixed in with that, some moisture and water residue, because there's going to be, you're going to have some oil get by your rings, even if it's a minute amount, but you're also going to get pressure that gets by in the opposite direction. And with that pressure in the engine and everything sloshing and splashing around, I guess that's how the oil mixes with the air. And I can tell you, if you spray a fine mist of oil in the air and walk through it, you're going to be oily. So, there is a small amount of oil that does get mixed with that as it comes back around and goes through the intake and passes by the valve. Okay, and so therefore that's how you get a carbon or oily residue that builds up on the backside of your intake valve. Your injection or your gasoline is being mixed on the other side of that valve, so it sucks down past that and keeps the valve clean. And so that's how everything stays clean. But the more efficient way is direct injection, to inject the fuel directly into the cylinder. I would see it as more economical, better fuel mileage and all of that. And just all kind of benefits to it. But you don't get the gas on the backside of the valve. And so nothing ever cleans it off, and the carbon and everything builds up until eventually the valve's not functioning correctly. And so what an oil can will do is, between that crankcase ventilation valve, CVV valve, and going back into the intake, you put a can. Okay, so you got input here, which will come from the CVV valve, and output here going around to the intake. Now, that's going to be different on different vehicles depending on what and how and all that kind of good stuff. And so as it passes through here, we'll have to look in here, but I think there's a baffle, and then there's this that'll go through to help capture the oily residue, and it drips down into the bottom and stays in the bottom of the can. And so that's basically the process. And if you have over ventilation or higher pressure, this ventilation filter or whatever goes on the top of this can and just sits there. And so if you have an overpressure situation or any more pressure that can be maintained, this will vent it so you don't have a huge amount of pressure coming in here. It'll also vent pressure from the crankcase, and this right here will catch any residue so that you're not putting an oily residue out there. Now, will this ever need to be changed? My assumption would be most likely not. I just can't see where there would be enough that would be up here that would need that. So I think this is just going to be something that looks cool and more red on top of the kit. And so we'll get to, say, this part. This is the hose they send with it. I'm not putting that on my crankcase ventilation. That is too soft, and I can imagine that collapsing or blowing if the pressure was high. I don't think it could ever possibly get high enough without a severe damage to the engine to blow it, but I could see it collapsing pretty easy. So I'm going to get some more, and that looks like about 1/2 inch line. I'm going to get some more line to replace that with. I don't know how much I'm going to need just yet, but I'll do all that and get it all together before we go that far. So here we have several hose clamps, in which I did watch a video to where someone showed how to get the Ford standard hose connectors off and reuse those, and that's what I'm going to do. And so in this portion where I put the pipes in here, I'm going to probably just use hose clamps, I guess, or something. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do, or where, but I'm going to do something. And we'll see that on the installation video. This right here is an introduction showing you what it is. And when I get around to doing it, then that's going to be videoed, and I'll show you the whole process of the installation and everything that I do. And so you've got multiple sizes. You got some little small ones here. It looks like about a 3/8 hose barb connection. Then looks like you've got a 1/2 inch hose barb connection, and probably 5/8, 3/4 hose barb connection. I guess depending on the size of your engine, which is also the size of your ventilation hose and all that kind of stuff, will depend on which one of these you'll actually install in here. Looks like they give you a little small roll of Teflon tape to put on here. I do recommend that you use that. You also get multiple O-rings for something. I don't know what those are or why, but you've got them. And so the catch can itself, you've got flats here to be able to catch it, to grab it with something. But I can just unscrew that by hand. It's not hard. Back here, this is the mounting bracket. And it looks like the mounting bracket can be turned down like this or spin it around to where it's sticking up here to be mounted. And so this is what I'm going to use to mount it to the truck. Real quick, why do I have two? Because my truck has 2 turbos. So the F-150 EcoBoost engines, be it, and I don't know if them little 1 liters or the 1/2 liters or the 3.5s or whatever. Mine's a 2.7 liter engine, and it's got 2 turbos on it. I think they all have 2 turbos, but you have a left and a right bank turbo. And so you need one of these 320 turbos. So because you have a ventilation on each side. And so that's why you have, so if you have 2 ventilation hoses, you need 2 of these. If you have 1 ventilation hose, you need 1 of these. And so anyway, you find a place where you can mount this. And like I said, I'm going to use this right here. You'll pull this stopper out, which is probably what these O-rings may go on. I don't know. Pop this in there and you have that ventilation on top. What do we have? This right here is unscrews, and it's kind of neat. It's a dipstick. All it is you just put it in here, take it out, and look at it. If it's getting to wherever you decide you won't put a hash mark on it where you want to make sure you empty this, when you see it up to that point, then you'll go in here and you'll just unscrew the can and dump the contents out. So let's open the can up and look inside. Now, I've seen videos where people talked about quality ones and not quality ones and whatever. And this was very inexpensive. Probably the same thing that I've seen on Amazon and other places. It didn't cost much. For each one, I think they were like $12 a piece or $14 a piece or something like that. And I got the 2 that I was going to need 2, so I got 2. And so they talk about what condition and everything. Now, if you look at this, I can see some machining marks on these flats. I don't care. That don't bother me. It's smooth. It feels good. It's got, good weight. It's nice aluminum. I don't see any negatives to it anywhere at all. The finish everywhere is beautiful except on these flats. The finish is a little bit off, but the anodization is great. It's amazing anodization on these. If you look here in the can right here, the anodization inside is good. On the threads, it looks like just one little spot right there. The anodizing on the threads didn't catch quite as well, and that may have been where they were holding it in the solution to anodize. But usually when they've cheaped out a lot, you don't have anodizing on the inside, your threads aren't anodized, or they aren't anodized good, which these are decent. I've seen commercial grade, professional whatevers, and they're not even as good as that. So you've got that going for it. The inside finish looks fine. It does have a few little scars, but it was anodized afterwards, and it's fine. So let me go ahead and take the dipstick out of this and put it there. And so here, wow, that is metal. I am very, very impressed. I mean, I am very impressed. So I wasn't expecting this to be anodized as well, but it is. So here we go. This is the little cup, which I guess you would put, I don't think all of this will fit in there, but I guess you would put however much of this media in there. And that is also right in here where that plug is. And that's on the intake side. So it'll help diffuse the oil air mix. And the anodization on this piece is good too. There are no plastic parts in this. There's rubber O-rings, but no plastic parts. I'm very impressed with that. And so you have, and I guess you don't have to put this in here. I've seen some that have baffles. They had one exactly like this that had a baffle in it. That's fine. But I think this media kind of serves the same purpose as baffle. I don't think I would try to stuff this whole steel wool pad in here, maybe about half of that, or maybe not that much. But I was concerned about this being able to be sucked up into the output, which would put it right back into your intake. But they've got this little cage on there. I wasn't expecting that, but that's great. So this right here, I'll take one of these for both of these cans and then have the other one as a backup if I ever end up needing to change it. I don't want to put so much of this in there that it's stopped up and you can't get adequate ventilation. But I'm going to make sure I install this so that I don't have an overpressure situation and the ventilation can get out. The pressure can get out through this. So I can see myself needing to clean this. Well, that's a little bit of damage there. That's not good. But that was shipping. That I don't think that was, well, the box wasn't bent. So this is a downside, definitely a downside, being boogered up like that. But I'll turn that back towards firewall or something. Anyway, I'm not worried about it. That's good. So I'm not worried about this being sucked around because it's in here, and I'm gonna have this on there for any excess ventilation or pressure will come out through that, and the filter on here will keep not allowing any oil to go through that. So your input from your crankcase will go straight into here. And if it's a higher pressure, it'll go right out the top and be filtered so that you're not putting oil in your engine bay. And for the most part, it's going to take and come through this media right here, captured in this cup here. And it's going to end up dripping and collecting in the bottom instead of being sucked around over here. So we're not talking about like high volumes coming through here. And really, to be honest with you, I think you could end up with a potential. You're probably, when you're really getting on it and you're punching those turbos, you could end up with an excessive blow by, I would think, or raising the pressure in the crankcase. And what would that be doing? Maybe that could even pull a vacuum. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it more, but that could, when your turbos are kicking, you may be able, it may pull a vacuum somewhere, but I'm gonna have to think about all that and see what's what. I'm gonna watch Ford Tech Maculoko to see how he installed one, because he installed these, and I want to see how he did it. And I'm gonna follow his lead. Because I really like the guy, and he does a lot of good. He's got a lot of good videos and a lot of good information, because that guy, I believe, he just wants to help people. He wants you to to know stuff about your truck. He's been working on Ford vehicles forever. He looks really young, but he's got a lot of experience, many years on Fords, I believe. So I'm gonna watch his and see his installation, and we'll kind of go from there. And I'll pull from it what I think I need to. But I think he may have done one of these, installed one of these on a, I don't know if it was an EcoBoost or not. But I think it was twin turbos, and he tied them together and only brought them in one spot, I believe it was. But he also talks about the conditions of where something will, nullify these because of something else. And I don't remember exactly what that was. But he also used directional check valves in his system, which makes sense. And that's another reason why I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind it could potentially pull a vacuum somewhere, because that would make sense. You'd only want to use a check valve because you don't want to go back the other way. Well, we're dealing with pressure, atmospheric pressure, and extended pressure from the turbos forcing air into the intake. So at that particular case, I can see where there could be a vacuum somewhere in the system. And so a check valve would be called for. So that's some other stuff that I'm going to do some more research in and see about. So, but that's an overview of basically what we have here. And again, like I said, I got two of them because I have two turbos. And so exactly how it's going to be installed, I don't know yet. This is probably going to be a little bit up the road. But the 2.7 EcoBoost does have direct injection. And so the back of the valves do not tend to get cleaned. And if you're in that turbo a lot, then you're going to probably end up with a lot of carbon and buildup on the back of your valves. My truck doesn't show any signs of that through the miles that it's been ran. So I don't know for a fact, but I want these on there to start, accounting for that potential as soon as possible. And so this is going to be a video in the near future to try to alleviate any potential issues for that. So be on the lookout for that. This is going to come out first, and then the other video come in. Now, again, like I said, I've taken and it's been hosed just like this on a bunch of crankcase ventilation valves in my history, that when I'm changing those valves around, and just the hose is just not much to it. And I think this would potentially work. If you don't have anything else or no access to anything else, then this could very well work. But I would definitely recommend, you got kinks here, and who knows how long it's been in those kinks. So I definitely recommend, putting a little bit of heat on it, stretching it out so that it expands back to its full diameter. Because my concern would be this collapsing. I don't know if it would. But I'm going to put a sturdier hose on there just in case. I don't know what this is made out of. I don't know if it's Buna, Viton. I really don't know the type of, or maybe Buna. I always called it Buna. It's not really marked. I don't see anything on it that says anything. But I would imagine that there is some heat resistance, factors to this, have to be, because your crankcase is going to get hot. I don't think it's going to be super hot, but it's going to be hot, and you're going to be experiencing that heat. So I've got some more research to do, because I'm going to convince myself in my mind that this is a easy process before I ever decide to undertake it and go for it. So I'm going to do my research, and we'll make a video out of it so that hopefully you can use the video. And I make these videos not to try to make somebody think that I know something about anything, or a lot about anything, or anything. I make them as an example, good or bad example. I make them as an example so that hopefully you can watch them and you draw your conclusions as to what you see from my other videos. Because if something doesn't mess up and work out in one of my videos, I'll make a add to it, or I'll put a comment on it and say, hey, look, this is what happened on that. Don't do that. So I make these videos as an example, and if everything works out great, hey, look, follow that example, or don't. It's your choice. but I'm making them to try to help other people, so that they don't have to, dig around and not find anything and just try to wing it. Because I've had to wing it so many times over the years. And then again, there's been so many times over the years that I've went to YouTube and I got the information. So I hope to be that person that you can go to YouTube and find out how to do something that you're unsure about doing. Anyway, I hope that's as clear as mud, and we're going to get into this as an actual installation in the near future. I thank you, I appreciate you, and I enjoy spending time with you. And I will see you, yes, you, next time. Your time is very important to me, and I thank you for spending it here with me. Thanks, and God bless.